Hello, Sadam. How are you?
Hi, Salam. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm still so obsessed with your background.
Thank you.
I think I mentioned it last time when we met. I was like, oh man, it just looks so artistic and creative. And now I know that you do so much art, so um it makes a lot of sense.
It's very fitting.
But yeah, anyway, sorry. How have you been? What's new with you? How are you? How was your
I'm
day?
good. I just came back from work. Just working on so many different things, trying to get things like in order, with the book and everything else. My
Yeah.
allergies are trying to kill me, but it's okay.
Oh no, I relate, but medicine is good. I also do it's kind of gross, but the neti pot. Have you ever tried that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I want to get into the book and talk a lot more about that work, and also just I feel like your book has or touches on a lot of things, which are things I would want to touch on in a podcast anyway. So it's just nice that you put it into a book. Um, but I know I obviously know a little bit more about you, but just to anyone listening, can you give us a little information and tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are? Yeah. I know it's probably the worst question. I hate when people ask me to do stuff like that, but I'm gonna put
Yeah,
you on the spot.
you have to, especially all of us in black scarves. I feel like we have to introduce ourselves a lot.
Yes.
But so I'm Marah Siyam. I'm 23. I live in New Jersey. I'm Palestinian. I went to college for English, art, and art history. I paint. I post little videos on Instagram if you want to follow me, Marah underscore Siyam. And I recently finally published my book.
And when did you start writing that book?
I started writing the book 2 years ago exactly. Literally a day after Corona hit.
I was going to say, was it because of Corona that you wrote it? So many people had to find ways to stay, busy at home. And I don't know. I feel like writing a book would have been a good thing if you could do it.
I think my family members know me as the dramatic one. So when Corona hit, I literally thought the world was going to end. And I figured if I don't write this book now, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. And if the world ends and I didn't write this book, I'm going to be very mad. So I sat down and I just wrote every single day.
And how long is that writing process? Not obviously to finish product, but just to have the storyline complete and then really just revising and editing.
So my teachers and my classmates in college always called me the worst English major ever because my writing process is horrible, but it works for me. Mm-hmm. So I don't outline, I just have an idea. And the first draft of the book was just pure free writing from 10 o'clock at night to 4 a.m. because I really focus at night more than in the morning. I'm not a morning person. But yeah, I wrote the whole story. It made no sense. It was horrible. And the story was just all over the place, but there were things that I liked. And so the second draft, I focused on those. Still bad. You just keep going until you reach the draft that you like, and then you publish it.
I mean, I don't have any, not only do I not have any history in writing, but I'm not a writer at all. So I think that's pretty cool to just have that. I mean, I imagine it takes a lot of discipline to continue because it's kind of, well, obviously you also create art, right? And I did see some of your videos and I think it's really cool. I know you like to talk a lot and create art at the same time, which is, it's nice as a viewer to experience that with you. But I sometimes have ideas and I start the process, and if something happens in the process, because sometimes it takes several days, I tend to lose the initial ambition or motivation towards that piece, and it just sits there. And I have, my most recent work has mostly been digital, and I was looking at it the other day and I saw so much work that just was incomplete. And I'm like, some of the stuff I want to go back into it, and some of them I just, it's crazy that at one point I really wanted to do it, and then now I just don't see that same vision anymore. So I imagine it takes a lot of discipline because you're investing so much time into writing this story. Is this your first kind of serious writing that you've done, or have you published anything before?
I published small stuff, poetry, a lot of poetry and things like that. But I've literally written 2 books before this that there's just they just sucked. And creating art and creating and writing and things like that, you have to be okay with hating what you write, and you have to be okay with failure until you really put your foot down. So for this book, it was too personal for me to let down. but there were definitely like a month here where I just like couldn't write because I just needed to like have more conversations with myself, be more honest with myself when I was writing and things like that. And like when I write, I can't read and I can't watch shows because it just like ruins whatever's going on in my head. So I was like pretty isolated from Corona, isolated from like things that I wanted to watch. And sometimes you just really have to do that. And you also have to be okay with writing things that you hate, because I definitely didn't like the book while writing it. It caused me a lot of like I was really sad while writing it, made me really feel a lot of emotions that I want to feel, think about a lot of things that I want to think about. But sometimes you have to do that to create something you are proud of.
I think that's the artistic process, right? Which is why when people create work, whether it's, you know, the traditional sense of art, or at least I call it traditional sense, but you know, like paintings and drawings and stuff, or creative writing, it's you're really getting to experience something with the artist, which I think is like the enjoyable part of you know, viewing someone's work or reading someone's work. And then too, when you have the opportunity to speak to the person behind it and you learn more about it, it's almost like you want to experience it all over again, because now you have more context, personal context to that journey to creating, which I think is also just really cool. And so you said a lot of stuff which I found interesting about how essentially I wouldn't call it caused you pain, but it did cause you discomfort from what it sounds like.
Pain is fine.
Okay, so pain is fine. Okay, so it caused you pain, but like, how do you proceed or not, you know, take a step back to say, okay, this is like too much? Or did you have that type of boundary within yourself? Like if it was getting too much, you stepped away. How does that work?
Definitely when it was like really kind of like ruining my life for like a hot second, because when you write something that's really heavy, you already have in your mind the questions that people are going to ask you, and you have to be okay with answering those and not answering questions that you don't want to answer. And so those ideas is what really like gave me so much anxiety, but I came to terms with it. I buy a lot of stupid stuff to like make me happy, you know, little tiny like figurines. I collect like little Pusheen dolls, like things like that. For some reason they do like help me a lot. And so I did a lot of that, but also just being okay with feeling those feelings. Like I it was making me sad, but that's also what a good book is, because if I'm not crying while writing the scene that's hard, how do I expect anybody else to cry or feel those feelings if I'm not, and I'm the person writing it? Like you have to. Good art will always make you feel things even if you don't want to, because if you don't feel anything when you look at a piece or when you read a book, then it's not a good book and it's not a good painting. And I really held on to like that advice that I got from a lot of people in school really hard, because I had to. And it was like a weird form of like therapy, like writing everything down, even if you know it sucks, gets your thoughts out in a way that you didn't even know you had. So writing everything down, that first draft sucked, but the second draft was better. And then it just kept getting better, and that's what's rewarding.
I'll ask you this, do you think people are entitled to know more about the process? You know, you mentioned that people might ask you about certain things that they read, which we haven't even talked about what the book is about. We'll hold people in suspense for a bit, but do you think people are entitled to know that? I mean, how do you feel as an artist? Like, are you comfortable sharing more about that? Do you keep some of that to yourself?
I decided like midway through writing the book that I was going to be comfortable answering all the questions, even if I didn't want to. But that's me, and that shouldn't be everybody else. And if you write a book that's equally as personal or deep or hard to like talk about and write, then you don't need to, and that's perfectly fine. But I decided like I need to, because I can't write something this personal and deep and not be personal and deep with the people asking me. So I made that decision myself. Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful. To me personally, I think it's like a case by case basis, and some people want to share, some people don't. I think you can't be upset or offended when people ask questions, because you're obviously putting something out there and people are going to want to react or be curious. But I still think that you can have some sort of boundary or timeline, because maybe you're not ready to share what it is. So to kind of talk or transition to talk more about the book, there was a quote I wanted to read from the author's note, and then I want you to talk about kind of why you said this, but also really leading into the storyline of the book, what inspired you to write it, just everything else that comes along with your process and why you wrote this book. So it says, if my work can do one thing for the little girls who had to grow up sooner than expected, let it be the love and warmth they should have gotten at the time they needed it the most. So I thought that was like really powerful, especially because, I mean, you're 23, right?
Yeah.
I still find that pretty young. We're about 9 years apart. And yeah, that's a very strong thing to say. And I know it's loaded. There's a lot more to it. So if you can talk a little bit about your author's note, or specifically that part, and then about the book.
So I always knew I was gonna write this author note because I really wanted people to go into the book with like all of these thoughts, especially like being a good person and like having empathy for the characters and them not being good people, but they are good people. And then the last line, because like I know I'm 23, I know obviously I have like a super long way to go, but those teen years form you in a way that you can never get back or change, and you're just kind of left with like regret, all these feelings, because it's such a weird age to be like 13 to 18, because you're not an adult but you're an adult, and there's a lot of things that I think teenagers need that they didn't get, especially like little girls. And so I really wanted to like emphasize that that's who I wrote the book for, is for all those little girls and little boys, but the book mainly for little girls, really, because that's what is important to me the most, like little girls, and trying to give them like the little bit of comfort that they missed out on, because there's a lot of things that I missed out on, and I think I would have really loved the book if I was like 16, and that's really what my main goal and who my audience is.
So you feel like did you write this book for your younger self in a way?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So what is the storyline? Sure, I mean, I know the storyline from our conversation. I guess like talk about that, and also why you decided to write a book in a world today where a lot of Muslim authors are writing about, spirituality or like more positive books, children's books, etc. You chose to talk about something that's a little bit heavier. So if you can talk to us a little bit about the storyline and then why you chose to write about something a little heavier.
So the storyline is an interesting question because my writing style, and like I've been told this by other people, it's very like conversational and just kind of like little moments in time. And so that's what the story's like overall premise is. But it follows two girls, Roman and Hanuna, in middle school, and their experiences and their actions and their reactions to traumatic events like sexual assault, loss of a parent, their own faith, and their clashing identities while being Muslim, American, Arab girls in an Islamic school. But all of those clashing identities really are shifting their lives in ways that they can't comprehend at middle school. And them going through all of that while also watching their personality flaws and their friendship with each other, because they don't have the best friendship, but they are always there for each other to an extent. And just getting to know these two characters as people and hating parts of them and loving parts of them, and just showing the humanity of people and abandoning the idea that Muslim characters can't be bad. And so like that's what I wanted from this book, because a lot of these books, like a lot of Muslim books, are still afraid of painting Muslims in a bad light, and that's not what I do, because everybody is a person and everybody has flaws and we do things that we regret, and that's important. You just because you're a Muslim doesn't mean you don't go through hardship or get mad and cry and all those things. And so I needed to emphasize that because I was missing that and I wanted to read that. And so that's what I did. And it's just watching them through middle school, and then you find them in adulthood later in the book, and how their decisions and what they chose to do with their lives and how they chose to change affected their lives in bad and good ways. And just watching their story and learning about yourself through it.
So what inspired you to write that book? Does it in any way reference like personal experience, or is it just completely out of your imagination?
There's definitely parts that are like 100% me, but the big parts of the book, like sexual assault and things like that, there's just so many instances that I watched growing up that I didn't like, not myself, but with other people, and hearing all these stories of like Muslim people, girls and boys, and watching things that I didn't like and things that I didn't agree with. And so I wanted to highlight that for them and for all the people that I watched not get justice, not get what they deserved, and just kind of give them a little bit of like reconciliation with themselves or with their communities or anything, just like a little bit for them.
Were you able to create the kind of ending or storyline that you wanted to see played out in those experiences that you saw around you?
Yeah, because
or did it reflect more of the reality in which there wasn't necessarily justice, or, you know, obviously something like sexual assault is going to be completely, unfortunately, hidden in a lot of communities, right? Like, don't report it, don't talk about it, just pretend like it didn't happen. So is that something that you wanted to portray or not portray, and why?
Are we giving spoilers for the book?
No, I don't think you should.
Okay.
But is there something you can, well, maybe you don't have to spoil the book, but let's
I'll speak vaguely.
okay, yeah, if you can speak vaguely.
Okay, so as context, Hanuna is a very straightforward person. She's a lot more religious than Romana. She's a little bit judgmental. She has her flaws, but overall, she seems like the perfect kid from the outside. Romana, who is kind of like feistier, she has more opinions, but at the same time, she's extremely self-conscious, and she lets a lot of things affect her when they shouldn't, and she's still self-centered. As self-conscious as she is, she's self-centered. And so when they experience what they experience and witness, and what happens to Romana basically in the book is horrible and is not her fault. But the book's premise is that bad things could happen to you, but it's your problem to become a good person. You are not what happened to you, and you can't use it as a crutch. So have empathy for yourself, but hold yourself accountable, because what happens to you, you don't deserve what happens to you, but what happens after, yes, like that's your life and that's on you. And that's kind of like what I wanted to portray through me adding sexual assault to the book, because it shouldn't be hidden. And what happens in the book is what I wished happened to the people that I witnessed, what they got through living their life and through the people around them and the adults that should have protected them. But at the same time, Romana does a lot of things that she shouldn't have done anyway. And you kind of have this like back and forth, but it's not a back and forth, because you go back to the premise of the book, which is she didn't deserve what happened to her, but what happens to her life and the way she chooses to live it is her fault.
Yeah, it's what you do after.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes or something that someone told me once was, when you experience trauma, like what happens to you is not your fault, but how you heal from it is your responsibility.
Exactly.
So, you know, you have empathy for yourself, and definitely like take the time that it takes to figure out, you know, how do you reconcile what happened to you? How do you move forward? And that takes time. It's not an overnight, but at the end of the day, what you do when something happens to you or someone does something to you. And I do think sexual assault and that is like on the very extreme, because that's just so heinous. But other things like just people lie or backstab you or talk, you know, behind your back, those types of things, when you hold on to them, it really only affects you mostly. And at the end of the day, it's like your own life that's going to be impacted by how much you know, hold on to things that don't serve you, rather than recognizing that moving on is probably the best thing and letting go of whatever those things were. Do the people that that had those experiences, do they know that this book was kind of related about it, or like the people in your community?
The community know. I would say like I didn't tell anybody that I was writing the book except my sister, who's like also serves as my editor, and my friend who is a journalist, so she's also very good at writing. So there's only two people that really watched me write the book. I didn't tell anybody else. But I definitely did like reach out to people and I let them know, because it's not, I didn't steal anybody's story. Like I did not write anybody's story verbatim. Like it's not specific in any way. None of the book is specific. Even the parts that are me, like nobody will ever find out unless I tell them. So the book truly is just like me imagining these two lives, because I'm not either of them. And I've had that question multiple times, like, which one do you like more, Ramona or Hanuna? And it's like, I don't want to be either.
Okay, let me scratch that question off my list.
Okay. But yeah, like their experiences, and nothing in the book is based off a person. They're based off people's experiences and the way I viewed them.
I mean, that makes sense. And again, it's depending on how vague or how specific you were about certain things. Okay, so I have a question for you, because you said something that sparked a conversation I've been having with people, and it's still one that I go back and forth on. And you talked about how a lot of authors or people don't portray Muslims in a more authentic way. Like, of course, we understand our values, and it's nice to have things that are positive out there to look at, to be enlightened, to feel positive. But the reality of it is our community is just like everyone else's. We have all the toxic traits that you can think of. Have you ever watched the show Rami?
I tried.
Okay, well, tried's an interesting word. Now I'm curious as to why you just tried it. So the reason I bring Rami up is because I watched both seasons, and I'm sort of conflicted by how I feel. Like, obviously, as an entertainment show, it was entertaining, but as a Muslim, I did think some things were like went a little too far. But really, in that same kind of mindset that you have, I think that's what the show was trying to portray. Is maybe it's the extreme version to an extent, but I think that as uncomfortable as it made people feel, it's not like you didn't have people in your community that you knew were doing those things. So whether it was having sex or doing drugs, sexual assault, all of that stuff. But for me, there was so much more relatable content, obviously outside of those things, that I didn't relate to. But for example, when he went overseas, and one of the scenes that really I just connected with so much was when he got to Egypt and he met with his cousin. And I think one of the first things he asks him is like, okay, like, where's the masjid? Like, where's the mosque so I can go pray? And his cousin looks at him like, you're going to go pray? Like, we're going to go to the club. And it's that idea that our cousins or family or relatives back home think because we're American, we're just super open-minded and, maybe do these things, or at least openly do these things, when we don't realize that they are trying to live the lifestyle that they don't have, which is more Western. And we're trying to also hold on to the lifestyle we don't have, which is like our deen and our culture and living in like a more Muslim community. So when we do go back, and that was my experience, is, I wanted to connect to my roots as much as possible, when all my cousins wanted to do was, but they wanted to get all of the Americanness out of me, my clothes, my music, and all of the stuff. And that's like not what I wanted to do. Anyways, am I wrong to say that that's kind of what your mindset was? Because that's what I thought of when you said that. I thought of Rami, but you said you tried watching it. Obviously, you didn't continue. Why?
So I think I don't think there's anything like explicitly wrong with Rami. I think it's his personal story, so nobody can like tell him that he can do that. Do I wish he could like change the execution a little bit, like portray the characters like slightly different? Yes. If I was like in that writing room, it's not that I would scratch anything, but for example, like making I think I remember her being, I think she was Black, that character, that female, making her like the only girl that's like super out there and like super sexual and all that stuff. Like maybe that's not where we should go. But overall it's a story, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just wish like the first show to be on HBO, written by like a Muslim American person, just to be written in a way that portrays all those things, but then there's like a resolution in the end. I think I just never felt like resolved while watching it.
Well, I would encourage you, I would love for you to actually finish it. I know sometimes it can be hard, especially if you see something that's already rubs you the wrong way, because I feel like there is kind of, and I don't want to ruin it for you, we can have this conversation after you watch it. But again, I think if you did watch it, I could, extend this conversation. I have more to talk on that, just because for me, the idea of, and I think this is what you're doing with the book, not sugarcoating the Muslim experience and the way that we think, mainly because we're so used to hiding all our traumas. We're used to hiding, all the bad things. But like everyone has flaws. If every family has problems, everybody has skeletons in their closet, obviously some bigger than others, but like no one's perfect. And I think we need to stop portraying, our Muslim communities or, whatever Muslim lifestyle or experience as being perfect. It's just like everyone else's. So I think that that's great that you did that. And it just kind of reminded me of, I think, what he was trying to do or is doing with his show.
Yeah, no, I still like agree with him making it, and like I would love to like, I don't know, work with him one day or something like that, because he is like from my community actually.
Oh, is
like,
he?
Yeah, like he literally grew up like 20 minutes away from me.
Oh,
so like we could have crossed paths if I was like older. But you know what it is, I know like what the ending is and all that stuff. I just wish it was more prominent, because I think what was like more advertised, which might not be his fault, could be HBO's fault, was like the shock factor and all that stuff. And I just don't think you could, I don't like the like sacrificing the story for a commercial. I think that's what like annoyed me a little bit, because I think his story is like amazing and like good for you. That's awesome. Like I'm so proud of him as like somebody who's like, a couple of people removed from him. And I think that, I think that's really what it was for me, because I am like, I have that same idea, but I made the resolution like large enough, I think, that made me comfortable with saying all the things that I wanted to say. So like they're in Islamic school, and the Islamic school, like, not a spoiler, but it sucks, because I went to like a super sucky Islamic school. But I don't bash Islamic schools, because I went to a different one and I loved it, and I absolutely loved it, and it changed so much in my life. And so like that's really like I kept going back to that a lot in the book, because it's never Islam, it's always people. And that's like the core part of my stories, that these are people. These are not communities. These are not religious leaders in any way. They're children at some point, in the book. And I make sure to like emphasize that as much as I can.
I mean, Islam is a theology. It's and people are the makers or breakers of, our belief system, right? Like Muslims, Islam is perfect, Muslims are not. So it's one of those things where it's just really hard, because obviously people want to generalize. We want to even generalize sometimes. But you can't. And for people who struggle with the deen, or like with their religion or spirituality, I think they do have issues with reconciling that it's not the deen, it's people, because they might have grown up in a house that, their parents were so strict and they used religion against them in ways that traumatized them, or a community that, used deen in a way that maybe oppressed them. And so, like they don't know any better, and that's how they see it. And so again, back to your point, it's what happens to you is not your fault, but how you move forward and how you heal from it, that is your responsibility, because at the end of the day, that is your life. So there's a few things that you talk about in the book, like we said, some hard-hitting stuff. What are just some things that maybe aren't as serious, but that you thought were important to highlight, especially when looking at the experience of a Muslim girl? You kind of really do have obviously these two contrasting characters. And I love that you made them friends, because I feel like to an extent we all can relate to, at some point in our lives, I know I can, I'm sure maybe you have as well, having a friend who maybe at one point you were aligned, and then you grow older and one just starts, acting some way, or maybe you're the one that starts acting some way, and then they become, either more religious, or they're too good, or whatever it is. So what are some of the other things that you wanted to highlight in your book about the Muslim or the young Muslim girl experience?
I definitely wanted to highlight things like hijab, which is it's not really like the biggest part of the book, but it's pretty there, because I love hijab, and I just like am really it kind of like makes me like a little bit sad that like a lot of people are taking it off, and the connection that I saw growing up is kind of like dwindling in the connections that in the generations that are coming up now. And I do think part of that is that nobody is taught Islam with like compassion as much as I would like. Growing up, like hijab for me was just modesty. You need to cover up in front of guys that are not related to you, and kind of like the bullet points without everything in between. And that's, I really wanted to highlight that with Hanuna, because she's trying, to be hijabi, and Romana at some point was, but it's a very nuanced conversation that a lot of people just gloss over. And why are so many people taking it off? Like, let's have a conversation with all the girls that are taking it off. Why just demonize them completely? Like, we don't know what's going on in their lives, and we don't even know if they were taught what hijab truly is in its like purest form anyway. Like, I know I didn't growing up. Like, I'd had to that like 16, but that was when my sister explained it to me. Now my Islamic studies teacher, and I think I wanted to like make sure I have that in the book, because I definitely would have never tajabbed if I didn't get like a talk that was convincing enough to my heart instead of like my brain of like, you should cover up because you're safe from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not really convincing when you live in a country or when you live in an area that isn't like that unsafe.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Let's talk about burnout. Burnout is something that I experience on and off depending on the time of the year, right? And sometimes I'm overwhelmed. I have stuff going on at work. I have stuff going on in my personal life, socially with my friends, a lot that I feel like I can't handle. And sometimes I don't know what it means to take time for myself. Sometimes I don't know what it means to create boundaries towards, relationships that I have in my personal life. Life can be overwhelming, and therapy definitely helps. I talk about my experience with therapy on this podcast quite often, and I started a few years ago, and I'm not usually super consistent. I have stints in which I regularly attend therapy, and then I'll take a break whenever I feel like I'm doing okay and don't need it. But therapy has definitely helped me with things such as burnout and creating boundaries and just having a better balance in life. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/muslimgirl. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/muslimgirl. Hey friends, I'm going to take a quick little break just to talk to you about our next partner, which I'm really excited about. Our next partner has a product I've been using literally every day since I received my package, and that is Athletic Greens. So I started taking Athletic Greens because if you're like me, I'm so confused sometimes about what I'm supposed to be taking. There's always a lot of things that people tell you. You should be taking this type of vitamin, and you should be taking these types of minerals, and you need a probiotic. And I'm just, when do you take what and how and when? And it's super confusing. I don't know if I should take something that's all in one. I don't know if I need to go find individual ones. It also can be quite expensive, to be honest. And so I'm excited to be partnering up with Athletic Greens, where I'm able to get everything that I need in one scoop. And I know that it's good for me, and I know that it's clean and healthy. It has 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. And the different blend of these ingredients is supposed to support your gut health and your nervous system and your immune system and your energy recovery, etc. All the good things. And so what I really love is their individual packets, because those have been really convenient for me. I tend to be on the go a lot. I travel a lot. And so it's really difficult to, one, eat healthy and make sure that you're working out and getting everything that you need in your body that's good for you. So this has been really convenient because I can have it in my purse. If I forget to take it when I'm at home, I can take it on the road. I just need, a bottle of water, dump it in there, shake it, and I'm good to go. And one serving has less than 1 gram of sugar. So there's also no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything. And so it still tastes really good. So all this to say that it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. And again, it's just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. So to make it easy, I have partnered with Athletic Greens, and they're going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So all you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/thismuslimgirl. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/thismuslimgirl to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutrition insurance.
Yeah. Marah, you talk about the talking to girls who take it off. I always thought that was so important. And I know it's a sensitive topic. Like, I wouldn't just approach someone and ask them why. It's not my business. I especially wouldn't do it in public, or I should say on a public platform like we see happens. I've seen, I would say probably in the last 2 to 3 years, the most amount of girls on social media take off their hijab, because it's just kind of in your face. And when they do, it gets a lot of attention. There's so many comments. I would say mixed between good and bad. I would say just as many people who have something negative to say, there's people that would say something positive. But I am curious to know why. And it's not from a judgmental point of view. I do not judge a girl or a woman who chooses to take off her hijab or not to wear it at all. But I do want to know, because there's something happening, and maybe there's something we could do to help support, you know, women. I'm not saying to support them necessarily to put it back on. Of course, like, why wouldn't we want that for our sisters if you care about them? But also just to know that we've all had such different experiences. Like you can probably say that you chose to wear the hijab, that you had the intention and you were given the space and it was a choice. That's not really the story for a lot of girls, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so it worries me that when you come from an experience in which you had no choice and you were forced to wear, or were expected to wear it, and then people are attacking you when you finally make that choice, which isn't an easy choice. I don't understand how people think that that's an easy choice, especially to do it on, you know, in front of the world. To then like attack them, I feel like that's scary, because imagine your one comment or judgment is the one thing that tips over this person to just furthering themselves from the deen. And imagine that's something that you are going to have to respond to on the day of judgment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to say, like, was that comment necessary, or whatever it was that you said, that the judgment towards someone that was struggling. Anyone who is Muslim, takes off their hijab, obviously still Muslim, is struggling. That's a sign. I don't think anyone ever says that they don't. So I think that was really important. And I wish that it's a sensitive topic. So I hope that when I say that, I don't come off as like, you know, entitled or something, just because I'm a hijabi who's like comfortable wearing my hijab and I love it.
That's why, like, I made sure in the book, like, as a writer, I don't write characters that I didn't at least somewhat live in their experience. That's why, like, you know, I wish I could add more like ethnicities and different types of Muslims, but I'm not there yet to write that. And that's why, like, I made them American Palestinian Muslim girls. And then talking about hijab from that experience in America, coming to Islamic school and things like that. Like, it's a very specific, you know, like, it's a very specific conversation that I'm having within the book. And that's why, like, you know, of course, like, to read, if anybody reads into the book that, like, I'm not talking about, like, the girls that are forced, it's like, it's not even in the book, because I can't write from that experience, and I will not, because that's like, that's not
you
ethical.
have to write from, you have to write from what you know, and you can. And also, I think a reader would be able to enjoy a book, and like, you can just tell if someone is writing from a place of experience, or at least deep knowledge of something, than just writing out of, you know, their butt and just making stuff up. So I think that that's important. So what about the friendship? Because I think that that's really important. Navigating your friendship, you know, when you're young, your friends mean a lot to you, because that's like your people, right? And it's honestly, when, especially at the age that them two are in the book, that's when you really start feeling like you can trust people and you have closeness to you that's outside of your family. That's really when you first start to experiencing it, right? Like middle school, trust. You also might experience betrayal and jealousy and all of those things. So I almost want to say, why did you create such contrasting characters? Was that important to you? Like, how was it writing that, you know, the differences between the two?
I think my favorite, like, thing to read is like female friendships. I love female friendships, and like reading them and like dissecting them, because that's like fun. Because I have a lot of friends, and like I still have friends that I made in middle school, but I didn't want to write like two cool girls, because that's not really fun, because I like was bullied like so heavily in like middle school and even before that. So I like the two outcast characters, because Romana is like pretty enough to be a popular girl, but she's not cool enough. So she's not in that group. And Hanoun is just like not really cool, and people don't really approach her that much. And so they're kind of like forced to be friends. And just seeing that relationship, I think, is like super interesting, because they do become family. Because spending time with anybody for a long period of time, even if you don't like them, I like firmly believe that you fall in love with people over time, whether you want to or not. And so their friendship is like an interesting like tether game of, do we actually like each other? But I do love you, but I really wouldn't be your friend if I had another choice. So I just really like that dynamic. Because that happens in family too. If your sister wasn't your sister, would you really like her? It's interesting to think about.
I'm not going to answer that, because my sister's probably going to listen. I'm just kidding. I love my sisters. But you're right. I mean, even within sisters or family relationships, you have contrasting, like, personalities and lifestyles. And I think the hardest part of navigating that, and at a young age, it's very difficult because I don't think you're mature enough to understand like personal choice, is understanding that even though you might feel some certain way, like obviously you live your life a certain, like you as Marah live your life as a certain way because you believe that that's the right way, right? I'm going to wear the hijab because I feel like that's what's needed to be done, or what I feel like is right. You know, I don't know, maybe you give someone on the street money because you feel like that's right. You might help someone, whatever. You're picking and choosing how you live your day to day. Now, as much as you think that that is, you know, right, you cannot force or enforce that on other people or have that expectation. And that's a difficult thing.
Yeah. That's literally Hanuna's entire problem, is that she thinks she's living the way life should be lived, but she's also not being fulfilled by it, but she's still so stubborn.
I relate to her so much.
A lot of people so far, yeah.
I've always been like the really, you know, quiet, goody two shoe, like never upset my parents type of, you know, kid growing up. And I will say that there was there's a lot of things that I think made me very timid, and I think I was also fearful. So like I lived very straight path. And so if someone wasn't, I like was having anxiety for them. And I almost wanted to just be like, I don't get it. Like, how do you not see that this is bad for you?
I was like both, literally both. Like I was so afraid
at the same time, or like you,
like growing up, I always had the struggle of like, I need to like not be doing what I'm doing. And I have a lot of regrets from like my teen years and early college and things like that. But it was always like this other voice was like, just live, like it's fine, like you'll survive.
It's the little angel and devil on your shoulder.
Exactly. And like I really struggled with that a lot.
Yeah.
And until I like reconciled that within myself, I like wasn't content in my life. And now I am, but you know, growing up, like it's really hard to live one way and break it as you grow up.
I think if you're more like Hanuna, which I am, it is so exhausting to worry about other people and what they're doing when they're not even that worried about themselves. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like some things are just not that serious to them. And like I'm a very type A personality. So I very much, you know, think of every wrong thing that could happen, which is, I think, why growing up as a kid, I was just so scared of messing up. Like if I even wanted to do something as like lie to my parents, and instead of saying I was in an after school program, I went and played basketball with my friends or something, I would just sit there and think, I'm going to go do that. And then I'm going to get hurt. And then they're going to have to come get me, and they're going to find out, and they're going to say, what are you doing playing, you know, basketball? You were supposed to, like, my mind will go down that path. And so immediately I know I'm not going to do that. And, but that's not also right. And of course, like there's a lot to say to my parents for maybe being too strict on me at such a young age, but I didn't know that that was super unhealthy. So it's why I think your characters being as young as they are, it must be so hard to navigate a friendship. And I'm sure you talk about that when they're so different.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed, I think the thing I enjoyed most writing the book was this, like the moments between them just trying to be honest with each other, because it's so hard when you are looking at the other person that's the complete opposite of you, but you love them, but you really want them out of your life at the same time. And those scenes really made me like really sad and really happy for them, because I've definitely felt like that a lot. And I felt like both of them a lot of my life, because I used to go out and not tell my mom where I'm going, and then my car would break down and she would actually have to come. Like that's actually happened to me. That
was my fear. That's why I never did it.
I would have the fear, still do it, and then have the fear come through. And that those moments like shaped me a lot, definitely. I've gotten like reprimanded. My parents are like super like nonchalant. Like if I never had hijab, it would have been fine. If I chose to live a different way, it would have been fine. It was mainly like my sisters like raising me. Like my parents are old, so I kind of fell on them.
And part of growing up too is realizing that some of the things, they were just maybe irrational and they were strict, but a lot of it was just fear. Like they just want to know that you're going to be okay, and they want to know where you were. And I realize now, obviously as an adult, that it was really not safe for me if I ever said I was doing one thing and or I was going to do one thing and do another, because if I'm not exactly where they think I am, if something was to happen to me, how would they know to get to me? And again, I grew up, when I was in middle school, there was no such thing as cell phones. There was no, here's my location. There's no text me when you're done. I don't know how, we just played it by ear. But so again, it's part of like the growing pains, I guess. So I wanted to ask then, when we're talking about obviously these two different characters, what advice would you give? Which is interesting, because when I was thinking of this question and when I was thinking of them, I didn't know that you have a little bit of both of them in you. So I think this is even going to be better. But what advice would you give to the Hanunas of the world, the little girls that are more like Hanuna? And what would you give advice to the girls that are, more like Romana? Is it Romana? Like Romana, like pomegranate? Okay, Romana,
like
yeah.
straight up pomegranate. I love it.
I love it.
I was gonna keep those names for my kids, but then I ended up using them for my characters, so now I can't. There's text. But I needed a lot of rough advice growing up. And so I think rough advice is good in moments. And like, because I'm not talking to anybody directly, I'll just say like the rough advice that I got that shaped me as a person. So for Hanuna, it's definitely like, you need to sit down with yourself and get to know yourself, because you think that you know yourself and you're always in your own head, but do you actually believe what you're saying? Are you doing things because you think that they're good or that they're good for you? And you need to really figure those things out before you become an adult, because that's going to come back and really give you the biggest mental breakdown that you'll ever want in college. So don't do that. Figure your life out while you're young, or at least your personality, maybe not your life, because that nobody has figured out, but your personality definitely. And like, lose the judgment. You think you're doing your best, but the people around you are also doing their best. Nobody's slacking off genuinely. Like, people are genuinely trying their best, and you need to give credit where that's due. And for Ramona, it's definitely a little bit of the same thing of, you need to hold yourself accountable. And when you know deep down in your heart that you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, that isn't good for you, giving yourself excuses is just hurting you. No one cares. Literally, no one cares. If you die tomorrow, in 50 years, no one's going to care. And so your life is your life. And if you want to look back when you're 90 and be proud of yourself, then when you're 15, that matters. And I think like my life was really shaped by that advice, because you're so used to living just day by day, doing whatever you want, figuring out tomorrow's problems tomorrow, but that doesn't help, and you're not going to get anywhere with that. So really look yourself in the mirror, and if the person staring back at you is proud, then you're good. But if you can't look at yourself in the mirror, then you need to.
Yeah. And those are words that take time to put into action, or because
years
literally. And I think the whole point is that the first step is recognizing it, and then just taking your time. And I just hope and wish that every girl out there that is of that age, that really impressionable, delicate age of like, you're in between, a kid and a woman, you're a teenager, you're experiencing a lot, your body's changing, your life is changing, the perception of you from other people is changing, that it's just acknowledging it as the first step. And I really hope that everyone has someone that they can talk to, an older sister, their mother, or someone in their community that can be that for them. When I started this like mentorship program years ago, so I finished grad school, I was struggling for 2 years to find a job. It was a very depressing time in my life. And so one of the things I did is I started this mentorship program, and it was for Muslim female youth. And it was like so much fun. And I really loved working with the younger girls. I myself had 2 nieces at that time. I still obviously do, but they're like 17, almost turning 18 now. And I'm happy that I was there for them. But it's unfortunate that there's a lot of girls who don't have that type of presence. Someone who is not only Muslim and, Muslim American and can share that experience, but someone who's going to understand their struggles and isn't going to judge them for it. I feel like I was never able to open up to my mom about things because I felt like she would be judgmental because she didn't know any better. Like she didn't grow up here. She didn't go to the school here. She used to tell me not to sit next to boys in class and to tell my teacher I'm not allowed to sit next to a boy because I'm Muslim. She didn't know that it wasn't that deep. So obviously it's not her fault, but I had sisters and they understood because they went to school, and so I'd go to them and not necessarily, my mom. So I hope that they have that type of person in their life.
Yeah. I mean, I had sisters and I still didn't say anything. Like I like in second grade, I was in Palestine, and I have a scar to this day. I'm 23 of me getting like like beat
no
up
way.
at school, but I didn't say anything. So like, the second part of that is, you think a lot of the time some people think that they don't have anybody, but sometimes you do. If you don't reach out, you'll never know. If you don't try to talk to people, you'll never know what they're gonna say, and you can't predict that. So try to open up, because I talk about a lot in the book too, like thinking that you don't have people when you do, and having parents that don't understand, but you've never tried either. Like my relationship with my mom right now is like amazing because I finally put my foot forward and tried and really built that relationship myself.
Yeah.
So, that's also like that's like the second half of that advice.
Yeah, which I think is important. Someone out there is going to help
Mm-hmm.
and can be of help. You just have to ask, like you said, or else you won't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now to the questions that I implemented a while ago. And it's honestly probably something I look forward to at every podcast because I just love getting the perspective of different people. Obviously, the type of woman that I get to, the pleasure of like speaking to are very diverse. And so I think you're one of the younger ones, if not youngest ones. So it's interesting to maybe see how different you would answer some of these questions. And I don't have my notebook in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I have them memorized. So the first one is, what is your favorite piece of advice you've ever received? And I think you might have mentioned it, but if you can pick something else or something that you'd like to share.
I think the only thing that truly like calms like my nerves when I need to be calmed is like, nobody cares. No one cares what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Nobody is gonna remember what you want to say or what you posted or anything like that. You are blocking yourself from being honest, and you will not get anywhere in life if you're not honest. Dress the way you want to dress, do the things you want to do, obviously in like a proper mature way, but live your life the way you want your life to be lived. Like, look at my room, like, like just, you're gonna
it's
be
like
fine.
your own sanctuary.
Exactly, and everybody should have that. Don't be afraid to ruin your metaphorical walls. And
next thing is, what's your favorite quote? And it could be from a book, a movie, just something someone told you. What would you say your favorite quote is?
I have it somewhere on my walls. I'm gonna find it. I read like books that like only I like really, really like, but I don't know, the quotes that I usually think of right off the bat is like a Banksy quote. So like he has a quote of like, how does it go? It goes like, don't fit into the box, collapse the box, and then like stab it or something along those lines. And I really like that. And like Banksy is like controversial these days, and I don't know, he's always like inspired me, his work, his thoughts and things like that. And also my dad says this line a lot. He goes, do your best and leave to God the rest. And like I always have that in like the back of my mind from my dad. So I think that's my favorite quote.
I really like that. And it's such a comforting quote, especially if you are stressed about how much you can do towards something that is on your mind. So I love that. What is your favorite book that you've read? And it can be the book you wrote.
I definitely love my book. Have I read it in full myself? No, because I think I mean,
you wrote it.
I did, but I never actually read it like in full sitting down.
I see. Okay.
I feel like I can't, like it's too much, like it'll like ruin my day somehow, because it's like I want to go and like rewrite or something like that. But I think my favorite book is Haruki Murakami's After Dark. I literally can't remember a quote, but it's such a weird book, and I just remember it being like the shift in my own life of like, okay, I want to write because this is so weird. Everybody that I know hates the book. My sister absolutely hates it, but the whole book is one night, and it's just like the weirdest experience ever. But I love that feeling, and I reread that book a lot. So that's my favorite book.
What about like shows? Are you watching any shows, any movies nowadays?
Okay. I don't even know if I want to say this, but I love K-dramas. So if anybody watches
Oh my God, I love
K-dramas,
K-dramas.
okay, yay.
What's your favorite?
Oh, that's so hard.
Because my sister is like really into it. She's the one who got me into it. So I've watched a handful and I love them. I just don't have sometimes the time. But which one's your favorite?
I think my favorite at the moment, at least, is Our Beloved Summer, because it reminds me of like my book a lot, because it's like there's no real climax, but it's just their story and you're just watching them, and I love it so much.
Yeah. So I started watching it. I haven't finished it. My favorite is probably it's between Crash Landing on You and Hometown Cha Cha Cha. Did you watch it?
Yes.
I love that show. It was like it was just so wholesome. Like it just made me feel good. Like whenever I watched it, I just looked forward to like Sundays, just chilling at home, eating, watching Hometown Cha Cha Cha. That show was just, oh man, it was probably one of my favorites.
Like just like a raw story, and those are the stories I love like the most. And I like really wanted to do that in my book. Of like, there's no gigantic climax. It's just people.
Yeah, but also I'm really into that kind of romantic trope of you start kind of not liking each other. So my favorite movie of all time and book is Pride and Prejudice, and that's very much the storyline, right? Like they hate each other and then they fall in love and end up together. So that's why I think I also like, well, both shows kind of fall in that same type of storyline. So I just love them. I want to watch The Business Plan. I don't know if you've seen it, but I heard it's good.
Yes. Watch it.
Okay.
Like it's like so OG K-drama like writing that it's just like fun to watch.
Okay. Yeah, I have it on my list. My sister and I were once upon a time sharing the same like profile on Netflix because we were using my brother's. And then so like all the shows were just K-dramas because that's what she would watch. So I was kind of forced into it. And then now I have Netflix and she's on mine. So we have two different profiles. And it's now I have like, I'm very much documentary. It's either documentaries, reality TV. I love trash reality TV. It's horrible. K-dramas or like thrillers and stuff like that. I also love stand-up.
I'm exactly the same except thrillers. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's so funny. Like writing the book was so painful because I refuse to like consume media that like stresses me out. Like K-drama is like just the threshold. If I can't watch scary things, can't watch thrillers, can't watch like American TV because it's just too much anxiety for me. I can't do it. And like like it's so funny. Like I'm like a split person.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If I'm going through it, I cannot watch a psychological thriller or anything that has to do with a lot because it does. Especially before I sleep, it really messes up like my dreams, my sleep. But if I'm doing okay, then I'm all for it. I love the twisting plots and the mind games. Like I don't know, I'm a sucker for it.
Even at my best, I refuse. I can't.
Yeah.
It like greatly affects me.
Yeah, it can be too much. And then what's your favorite self-care practice and or item? So it's either something that you do to take care of yourself when you feel like you need a little, R&R or TLC, and then, or is it like something that like, people can buy or that you use?
My friends like think I'm like OCD. I don't think I'm OCD because I'm like a weird type. I'm like messy OCD, I guess. So I love my room. It's like extremely meticulous, but like nothing on the wall is straight. That comforts me. I collect like, right here, the little pusheen. I have like 20.
Oh, I see them. Okay.
It's just like a cat. I have them everywhere. Just stupid things that like make me happy, like little tiny knickknacks. Like I really enjoy like my ceiling has umbrellas.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
And like everything I collect. So like I'm not a hoarder because my drawers are empty, but my walls are filled. And I have like a really intense like bed routine. So I sleep with like 5 blankets, but they're all different and they all have like purposes. And like
and
like
you
just
sleep in them?
Yes.
All 5?
Yeah, because they're not like that heavy. Like
I see.
But like I just like I perfected my routine of like maximum comfort and maximum like head empty, no thoughts.
Yeah.
And everybody needs that because when you don't know what calms you down like all the way, then like how could you be comfortable at night. Like that's
Definitely. I am a firm believer of, making your space your sanctuary. Like I and my parents probably think I'm so strange because I will go through, I would say at the very minimum once a year, but probably more, where not only do I rearrange stuff in my room, but I will get rid of furniture and buy different furniture. And during COVID, I completely turned my room into like a workspace, because I was working from home, but it was kind of exciting to like have a workspace. And then I absolutely despised it. I hated having my office in my room. Yes. And then I got rid of it and I got more of like a seating area and like a little side table. Like I wanted it to be almost like my own living room area and space. And thankfully I have a room that's big enough to have all of this stuff. I put together this little shelves, yes. And it was just, I live at home with my parents and like, the house was decorated or whatever, however they like it, but I don't have complete control and I can't sit in any of the other spaces and feel like it's my own, except when I walk into my room. Exactly. And I'm very much like you, like my bed has to look a specific way. I make my bed every morning. I have like my oil diffuser, like before I go to sleep. And when I wake up, the first thing I do is turn that on and like open the window. Like I have a routine. And I myself would probably say I have a little bit of like an obsessive personality, not too much, but like I don't like clutter and I like structure to things. And that is self-care to me because I know that, it feels good for me. Exactly. And it makes me happy. So
exactly. Like I'm extremely obsessive over my room and my things, but in like my own weird structure. Like if anything on my wall
makes sense to you.
I don't know. Yeah, I refuse to do work where I sleep. So my office downstairs, I have like a pink keyboard with my desktop and all my my pink mouse and like all my knickknacks and like extremely the way I want it to be, but nothing is organized at the same time. That's really like my style.
Okay, and then the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self, younger Marah? Maybe Hanuna and Rumana's age. You specifically, what would you say? And again, you don't have to add anything personal. It could be a vague thing, but only you know what that means and what it would have meant to a younger you.
I think I was like super emo as a kid, and I thought that like I could not talk to my sisters and I couldn't talk to anybody, and I really like isolated myself a lot. And I was really like I think my most depressed years were definitely like middle school, early high school, and then I like grew up. But just like, the people that love you, that are saying that they love you, are not lying. Talk to them. It's gonna be okay. Like let people know what's going on. You're gonna be fine. Stop listening to like super heavy emo music and keep working on your writing and art.
I love that.
Don't go into accounting, because I did accounting for 2 years because I didn't like believe in myself. Don't listen to your teachers. That's a good one. And everybody else. If your teacher's saying something,
why not listen to your teachers? That's an interesting.
Don't writing is a career.
Yeah, of course they'll tell you.
A lot of teachers are wrong. They don't know you. Like as much as your teachers think that they know you, they don't. So you don't have to like internalize everything they say about you.
Yeah, unless you have like a really strong relationship with that teacher and they've had an impact. Then but in general, I agree because they don't know and they don't know your trajectory. I hope that you are / become a mentor for young girls. I mean, you're kind of doing it with your book, but I think it's so important for them to have someone closer to their age who can be so honest about their own experiences and, give this kind of insight. So you should do more than just writing a book. I don't know, start a podcast or something. And honestly, like tailor it towards younger girls. Like obviously I could do that. And I'm having my my niece who's 17 on in a couple of weeks. And I'm excited to have her on because it's such a young, fresh perspective, like straight up. Because I think, are you like cusp millennial Gen Z?
Yeah, I think I'm like 99. It's like right there.
Yeah. So she's like, no, straight Gen Z, like 2000, born in the 2000s. And, I think it's just going to be an interesting episode, but I would love to have more relatable stuff for younger girls. But I do think that a lot of my content is a bit mature for like a 14, 15-year-old to listen to. So having something that can help those 14, 15-year-olds who spend so much time on like TikTok and stuff like that, I think that would be so So
Oh yeah,
amazing.
that's why I'm trying to like post those videos. Like I don't want to post those videos. I don't want to make them, but it's like the only way I can like reach the audience that I'm trying to reach.
Yeah.
Like I really want to do that, definitely, because like I
And
wrote.
maybe that's the medium, right? Because most
Yeah,
of these girls aren't going to Spotify. I mean, if they are, they're listening to music, but they are on TikTok and on Reels, you know, watching these quick videos,
Mhm.
getting some funny story or insight into something. So I think, yeah, keep doing it. Then they need they need that the same way that your age range needs the older, you know, girls in their later 20s, early 30s. We're all just like passing down, you know, our knowledge to the best. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to do that because I wrote this book for them, and so I have to give back. Like I love like young girls, like they're they're full of so much potential, and I just wish I could like push them a little bit farther.
Yeah. And a lot of them do need that mentorship. A lot, as much as we feel like, oh, you know, we've grown out of that, like, well, maybe we haven't grown out of it, but like that, you know, children of immigrants type of mentality or whatever, it still exists. There's still so many immigrants coming in, a lot of Muslims from overseas, a lot of Muslims who are born into either revert families or they themselves are revert at such a young age. But those girls too need mentors.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm gonna try it. Like I'm going back to my old high school, the one that I like, not the one that I don't. But yeah, no, I definitely like want to like do something. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you have my support, so that's amazing. Okay, so tell us where people can find your book, where they can find you online. I love the cover. It's kind of an interesting story behind the work, or at least I think it is from what I saw in your video.
You can find out, I guess, the behind the scenes of the cover on my Instagram, which is Marah_Siyam, MARAHSIYAM. And you can buy the book off my website, marahsiyam.com, or from Amazon if you just search Some People Don't Deserve Names. If you want me to like, I don't know, have any questions or anything, you can always DM me. Like I'm cool. Yes. I'm not scary. I will give you advice. I don't gatekeep. So
and we love that because I'm the same way and yes, so that's amazing. Also I will have that information in the show notes, so like when you're listening to this, if you just go swipe up or whatever, I don't know, it depends on what app you're on, but I'll have the links. I'll have the link to your website, to your Instagram, to wherever else they can buy it. And yeah, thank you again. Honestly, this has been so enjoyable.
I know, this is so much fun. Thank you so much for like making me feel so comfortable.
Oh no, absolutely. And thank you for reaching out and you know, connecting. And I'm, you know, it's been obviously a pleasure getting to know more about you, your personality and how you are, and like, you know, learning about the artist behind the art, I guess you could say. So that's been very enjoyable.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me a platform to even come on, because without people like you, then we would all just be like random people on Instagram. We need this.
Yeah.
So you're like a big part of people that do work like me.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. We met for a reason. I really do believe that, by the way. I feel like people really do meet for a reason.
So I opened Bumble, hit him with my opening line. Now here I am, in a bar I've never heard of, to meet Dara. Maybe this will be the kind of date that has the staff packing up around us. Or I'll be so nervous I'll ask where he works like 3 times. What if he wants to live abroad? What if I want to live abroad? Maybe he'll be what I want. Maybe he'll help me figure out what that is. Either way, think I'm going to enjoy finding out.
Download and date on Bumble.